Hello and welcome to PlannerPod, the podcast of the Planner magazine, the official member magazine of the RTPI. I'm Ben Gosling, senior writer on the Planner, and I'm your host for the day. I'm joined by my co-host and editor, Simon Wicks. Hello, Simon.
Hi, Ben. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. It's a beautiful day outside, 25 degrees, perfect weather for podcasting.
Absolutely, especially down here where it's very, very cool.
Yes, we are below the ground, so it's nice and cool. So we've got a very special guest today for our 10th episode of PlannerPod. So he's got tens of thousands of subscribers, hundreds of thousands of views. We are joined by City Ed. How are you doing?
Hello, how are you doing? It's really good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
I just wanted to get started with a comment that I found on your YouTube channel, which I really liked and kind of thought it summed up your channel quite nicely. So this is genuinely the best urban channel on YouTube, not condescending or moany like a lot of other channels.
I remember that one. I wonder what other channels he's referring to.
Talking about all of them, Ed. All of them except yours.
He can't be a reader of the Planner magazine, so clearly.
No, we're incredibly condescending.
Yes.
So, yeah, and moany.
Incredibly moany, yeah. So Ed, how did you get into YouTubing? Because it's only been a couple of years, right?
It has. It's actually been, I think it was 2 years last week. Yeah, I think it was 2 years last week that I did my first video. I'd been thinking about setting one up for a while. I'd always been interested in sort of cities and architecture and urbanism and all that sort of stuff. It was when I moved to Elephant and Castle, so I lived just south of Elephant and Castle, and properly walked around the area, saw the sort of regeneration of Elephant Park and everything that had gone on there, that I was like, okay, this is a bit of me. I'll do a video about this. I'll just spend a sunny day like today, filming the area, and that was it. I just filmed the area, wrote a little script to go over the top of it, and that was the video. I didn't have my face in those initial sort of videos. It was literally just, I was actually emulating a little bit of like Jago Hazard, because I thought, okay, I don't have any editing experience. I've never really edited any videos before. I've watched a few YouTube videos. It seems as though I'd be able to do this like Jago Hazard style, you know, almost like, what did someone call it? A video essay sort of stuff. And that was the initial idea for the channel. And then I guess I learned how to edit a bit more and do more animated lines and stuff. Got a bit braver.
How long was your first video, Ed?
Oh, that's a good question. Is this a quiz question? Are you going to pull out my channel?
It is. If you get the answer wrong, you have to leave.
I'm going to say it was about 15 minutes.
That's
yeah.
good.
From looking at your channel, you have YouTubers. And please bear in mind, we are a planning podcast, not a YouTubing podcast, so we will come to planning later. But you don't really have the kind of hinterland of a load of videos that didn't really do that well and have 15 views or something. You got, thousands and thousands of views off this one video, having no editing experience. Do you know why?
So because obviously, as I said, I'd been thinking about setting up a channel for a while. So I'd subscribed to all of those Reddit threads about setting up a YouTube channel, and all of them were saying your first 30 videos will get like under 100 views. And I thought, okay, I'm ready for it. That's fine if I've got to put in the legwork. And then I think that Elephant and Castle video in the first week got about 10,000 views. I was like, what the hell? This is crazy. And obviously that encouraged me to carry on making more. But you're right, it was off really, really quickly. It was super encouraging.
Do you think that's to do with things like keywords? Because, I mean, we put the PlannerPod onto YouTube.
Of course.
And you fill out a little form when you put the video up. And you're asked to sort of categorise the video, under things like media, television, celebrity, news and current affairs. And then you're invited to put some keywords in, which I assume is what people might use in their searches for particular content. Mm-hmm. Maybe Elephant and Castle just kind of...
I think so. Maybe you're right. Maybe it just came right place, right time. Because at the time, I think the shopping centre was under construction. There was, and there still is, quite a lot of talk about Elephant and Castle. And it's been quite an evergreen video. So it just carries on going up constantly, because I think, and especially with the shopping centre opening, I think that's in September this year, I think it is just an area that people are quite interested in finding out more about, because it is an area that has been through this enormous amount of change, certainly over the last 10 years.
The title of the video is something like, I quite like Elephant and Castle, actually, because it's you're kind of very much making the case for the regeneration, which is, I think it's won a few awards, but I think it's fairly divisive.
Well, I was putting myself in my shoes. So when I first moved to London, I lived in Brixton. And so whenever I was cycling up into town, whether to go to work or literally just anywhere else, I would cycle through Elephant and Castle. I'd only see the roundabout. So that roundabout, well, it's not really a roundabout anymore, but that main road is like the only thing about Elephant and Castle that I'd ever see. So I didn't have the best impression of it. And then obviously everyone was sort of hating on it all the time. But then when I moved there, so we got priced out of Brixton, and got really lucky and managed to find a flat in Elephant and Castle that was actually cheaper than the other one we'd had. And I finally kind of walked around the area. I was like, wow, this is really nice. And I'd known about the regeneration of the park, but I suddenly discovered that the rest of it is really lovely as well. It's a real hidden gem in southeast London. And that's, I guess that's what encouraged me to make the video about it. I guess I put myself in my own shoes and I was sort of like, this is the journey I've been on, so here it is, and why I like Elephant and Castle, yeah.
Oh, it's quite a cheeky title.
Yeah,
I'd click on that because it's quite cheeky. It's quite
Exactly.
endearing, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm rolling it out to sort of other places that are kind of under the radar. So there's never going to be a why like Chelsea, but I did a why like Hackney Wick, and I want to roll that out nationwide because there are so many other like towns and cities. We're quite a self-deprecating people, I think, British people. You say any city, but Birmingham gets so much hate. But you go to Birmingham and it really doesn't live up to that like reputation that it has. It is a really great city. So I think why I like Birmingham is another one that I'm planning now, because I think that is another one that people will go, like, really? Why? And then they click the video and they find out why it is a really great city.
So if you are going to do one on Birmingham, may I suggest that you trawl through YouTube and type in Telly Savalas Birmingham.
Okay.
In about 1980, there's an old British filmmaker who made a lot of quota quickies, and he ended up with his career making a lot of short films about places around Britain. He did a whole series of places, a whole series of short films, and one of them was about Birmingham. And it's got Telly Savalas narrating this film that's basically promoting Birmingham as a destination. It's absolutely hilarious. He also went to Portsmouth and to Aberdeen before the whole thing kind of fizzled out. So if you can bring the spirit of Telly back to life.
Send me a link. That sounds awesome. I'd love to check that out.
You lost that video.
I do. I just, every opportunity I talk.
Yeah, you've shown me that at least twice in the past.
It's just welcome to Birmingham.
That's fantastic. Yeah, please send me that link. I'll definitely check that out.
I mean, you recently did a video on Newcastle.
Yes.
You did one on Liverpool. What kind of
Yes.
informed those choices?
Well, the Newcastle one, I went to uni in Newcastle and we really just wanted to visit again. So I was like, I'll do a video about it. And I did not expect that one to go off quite as much. That one, I A/B tested a few different titles on that one. So A/B testing, if you don't know that, that's where you can test like 3 different titles for YouTube videos, and whichever one gets the most sort of clicks wins. So I did try why I like Newcastle with that one. But I think the one that won was Newcastle in maps, which I'm really happy about because I love maps as well. So that opens up a whole other genre to do videos about. And that one, so I went to uni in Newcastle. I loved the city. We just went around. I had a little plan of where we were going to visit. And then we just cobbled it together into a video afterwards. And then the Liverpool one, there's been this enormous new development plan for Liverpool that's been launched earlier this year, and it's this huge like skyscraper district just to the north of Liverpool. So a lot of my videos, sometimes they focus around like the history of cities, sometimes they focus around urbanism. And then I also like to do these videos about these new master plans, new big developments that catch my eye. And that was that Liverpool one. Obviously the skyscrapers, they've like grabbed headlines and they look awesome and stuff, but I was really focusing on the ground floor, lower floor interaction, the public realm of that scheme, because it looks really impressive in the renders.
When you say just north of Liverpool, how far north?
Oh, no, sorry, north of the Liverpool city centre. So it's a bit of land called King Edward's Triangle, and it is literally, you've got the Liver building there. It's maybe about 200 metres up from the Liver building.
Up near Liverpool Docks?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, it is, yeah. I think they're seeing it as the first step in sort of redeveloping a lot of that derelict, underused land that sits all the way from the north of Liverpool city centre.
Also, that's something that's been really important in the Elephant and Castle development, isn't it? The kind of the streetscape, and the kind of making sure they've got those active frontages and so on. So, as listeners may be able to tell from the way City Ed's been talking about master planning and development, you do actually work in the planning sector. Does that kind of influence your videos, or vice versa, or
a little bit? So actually, I did urban planning at uni, but since then I've gone into more of a like researchy data analysis sort of thing. I work at a consultancy at the moment, and there's definitely a lot of it in there. I do try and keep them relatively separate because obviously you don't want to be mixing them too much. At work and everyone are super supportive. I think I probably use a lot of the stuff that I learn at work, certainly around like viability and stuff like that, because I do get a lot of comments saying, oh, why don't we make these buildings look a bit nicer? Why is it just like a flat top and stuff? And sometimes I'm able to sort of say, it's not necessarily viable to put a massive spire on top of these things. Sometimes I get accused in my videos of being a developer shill, which I completely get, because I'm like going on YouTube and being like, oh, isn't this amazing? Look, this render looks really cool. I completely get it, but I'm not a developer shill. I don't get paid for like these videos or anything like that. Developers don't come to me saying, can you make a video about this? I literally just choose what I like and do that video. But sometimes maybe that's how it comes across.
Pro development, for the love of the game. Yeah, for the love of development. Yeah.
But I mean, you get a lot of discussion going on in the comments, don't you? I mean, I was really impressed both by the numbers of views you get, but the number of comments.
Yeah.
The degree of interaction and engagement is phenomenal.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Before I went into this, I was like, okay, Ed, you're going to get loads of abuse because it's the internet and people are going to make fun of your hair. But everyone's been really, really nice. There are a few, I would call them challenging comments, but I actually quite like responding to them. Sort of, I guess, trying to, I don't know, just trying to see their side of things. And then sometimes I learn so much from my comments as well, because I don't always have the right take. I don't always have all of the information when I'm doing these videos. I think if I was to redo some of my videos that I did 2 years ago, I'd probably do them completely different with maybe a slightly different opinions, more nuanced opinions and things like that. So I'm constantly improving, and it is the comments that I get under my videos that absolutely are like, that helps me with future videos.
You've got a fairly well-informed audience. Though,
very well-informed.
It's not like this is just stuff that's people are hitting through doom scrolling on TikTok or Instagram, and you've got to look for this stuff. You've got to already have a previous interest,
I think
which
so.
implies that you probably have some understanding of what it's all about, and therefore you may have a more nuanced and more intelligent take, or you might respond better to somebody who clearly has put a lot of thought and effort into the work itself. And as you say, they're like essays. I was looking at one on the way over. It's 50 minutes long. Tell us about how long it takes to do these things.
Oh my God. I'm getting quicker at it. So the first few, when I was trying to figure out how to edit and, I had to learn a lot of that stuff myself. So that was taking ages, but it always used to be the script that would actually take ages. But again, I think now that I've found my voice, it really helps writing the script, because I can just say, well, this is how I would say that, so I'm going to say that, rather than sometimes I would hear like B1M in my head, and I'm like, no, this isn't a B1M video. Stop writing it like it's B1M. This is me. And now that I've found, I think that voice it's a lot easier. But from like initial popping in my head, oh, that's a good idea, to getting a video done, it can be anywhere between like a week. It has been a week before, up to like 2 months for that 50-minute flats video, which
that was really extensive. Though.
it was
very thorough. What I also like about a lot of your videos is the quality of the graphics that you're doing. Where are you getting those from? Are you making them? Or
I do, yeah. That was another really time-consuming thing, because I'd seen, so there are other YouTube channels. There's a guy called Daniel Steiner in the US who is like, his videos are like phenomenal. They're so smooth. They're so like just beautiful to watch. And so I've been watching him for years, and I was always kind of like, oh, I don't have the skills, and I still don't have the skills, but I would love my videos to look more like his. And so the lines and the animation, it's just a good way, I think, of presenting data. And I present a lot of data in my job as well. And so those two, I think, kind of mix a little bit in my videos. You can see that, with the graphs and the maps and the lines and stuff, there is a bit of that data presentation there.
Is it sometimes a struggle to kind of pass quite complex ideas about planning or economics for a kind of broad audience?
It can be, but I think, I do get comments that are saying, I got one this morning actually, which was so nice to read, which is, I think it was from someone who, they weren't really that interested in property, they probably don't work in property, but they were like, thank you for presenting this in a way that is so easy to understand. And I always wanted that to be the case, but I don't really know if I could explain how I do that. I don't know. I don't know. I don't set out to be like, okay, I've got to not dumb this down, but I've got to make this simple. I don't ever do that. I just sort of, I don't know, just explain it.
Do you have a particular sort of watcher, a particular kind of audience in mind while you're doing this?
I guess now it's the people who comment on my videos. So I kind of know what kind of comments I'll get for certain things. And then I write the video almost to sort of predict that those comments are going to happen. So with the flats video, I knew I'd get a load of people saying, but I don't want to live in a flat. I like having a house with a garden. So I addressed that in the video. I was like, and I know not everyone wants to live in a flat, and houses are great as well. We just need more of a mix of flats.
Have you ever thought about doing a follow-up video just addressing some of the particular comments? Just you sitting in a room, face the camera going, so-and-so says this is my response.
I definitely have. I get too excited because I've got a list of about 100 future videos, and that just keeps growing. So I get too excited about those videos without ever thinking, I should just go back and maybe address some of the... I definitely want to do that. There's Evan Erdinger does that really well. He does these videos that just like address his previous comments, and he does do it really well. And that could be quite an easy video, I think. So it's definitely a really good idea.
We're recording not that far from Oxford Street. I think the first video of yours I watched was about the sort of proposed pedestrianisation of Oxford Street. There's now pushback from the new Westminster Council. Would you ever kind of, revisit that topic in the kind of light of, these changes?
Yeah, definitely. I always try not to get, I guess, like too political in my videos, because there's definitely plenty of that in the world anyway. But sometimes, obviously, it creeps in when you're talking about planning and stuff like this. Politics always creeps in. But yeah, definitely. I mean, I've done 2 videos on Oxford Street now. The when it was initially proposed, and then again when they, I think when they sort of fired the starting gun properly, and also announced that they were going to pedestrianise Regent Street, St James, and Waterloo Place, because I was like, that's a huge bit of area that's going to get pedestrianised. So I thought, I've got to do another video about it. So there'll definitely be another one. Those videos always do really well. It's always a very interesting topic for people.
When I was walking here, it really occurred to me how, it's unbelievably hot outside.
Yes.
How little tree cover there is on Oxford Street, one of the capital's biggest, shopping streets, and it is just brutally hot.
Yeah, it is.
The sun bouncing off the road and the buildings. I think something needs to change.
Of course, have addressed this in one of your videos about the masters of planning in the Netherlands.
Yes.
Where you talk a lot about the power of street trees, about greenery, the various functions that it can serve.
Yeah, definitely.
Alongside a street.
Yeah, trees are superheroes.
I wouldn't disagree with that at all. And anybody who watches me on LinkedIn or follows me on LinkedIn would know that.
So do you have any idea about your audience in terms of, where they are, who they are as people? Do they tend to be from the UK?
If I look at my stats on YouTube, I think it is about 50% in the UK, and then about 10% in the US. And then it's places like the Netherlands, I think, because of that video that I did. I think Germany seems to feature. Australia always seems to feature quite a lot. But it is mostly UK, as I said, about 50%. Yeah.
I mean, do you think your audience have a kind of sense of what planning is?
Yeah, good question. Well, I think everybody has they wouldn't necessarily know that it's planning, but I think because we all live in a built environment world, whether you know you're interested in it or not, I think everybody is interested in planning, architecture, urbanism to some extent, because it kind of affects all of us. Because I don't necessarily present my videos as this is a planning video, but I think people see that video and they're like, oh, I know that place, or I like the look of that building, or whatever, and they click it, and then suddenly they're watching a video about planning and urbanism, even if they are not interested in those things.
Yeah, and I think a real problem planning has, and we've spoken about this a few times on this podcast, is that it doesn't necessarily help people make that leap, between, I'm interested in heritage, the environment, urbanism, and this is the planning system. The planning system isn't just this thing that stops me getting new windows or extending my flat. So
yeah, agreed.
I mean, do you find yourself, when you're making your videos, talking about policy and talking about technical issues? And if you do find yourself sort of going down that particular path, do you check yourself and think, okay, maybe I need to put this in more ordinary or everyday language?
Yeah, that definitely happens. I definitely, when I'm writing my script, I'll go down a rabbit hole, and then for like half an hour writing the script, and then I'll read it back and I'll be like, oh no, this isn't interesting at all. Because I have quite a short attention span. So when I'm watching a YouTube video, I'm like, losing interest if it goes too much into jargon. So then I guess I'm putting myself in my shoes, like, okay, would I watch this video? Maybe not, if it had so much jargon and things. And then if I'm putting myself in the shoes of someone who doesn't know all of this jargon and stuff, unless I can think of a way to like explain it really well with graphics and things like that, I generally won't include it. I'll try and streamline the videos as much as possible to get the point across, but without too much side stuff. Yeah.
I mean, what are the things you think that engage people in the kinds of content that you produce, in the kinds of material that we're talking about here? What is it that engages them initially, and what is it that keeps them there?
That's a good question. Yeah, that is a good. I mean, that's the art of it, I suppose. And I don't think I've quite realised it. I don't think I've quite got there yet. So if you look at my audience retention graphs, which you can see on YouTube, I think there's something like only 33% watch to the very end.
No, you say only.
Yeah.
That's phenomenally high. I can tell you that as somebody who's worked in the industry for 30 years, that is high.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
That's better. Okay. It always says for the first 30 seconds, it's kind of above typical or whatever. So I'm always like, okay, I'm doing pretty good then. But I think people love before and afters. So sometimes I put those in my thumbnail, like, here's what it looks like now, here's what it looked like, or here's what it looked like a few years ago, here's what it looks like now. People love that. And another thing is people love those architectural renders that architects produce. And I'm always careful to be like, okay, this is an artist's impression. Obviously, the sun is shining and it's always a sunny day in Renderland. But people love those because I think, right, that's what really got me interested in this, in urbanism and new developments and regeneration, is those architects' impressions. Because I thought, oh, wow, that looks awesome. So I think people love that sort of stuff as well. And I think people do like explaining stuff. They like learning new things on YouTube. I think that's one of the brilliant things about YouTube is you can click any video and suddenly you're watching someone incredibly passionate about a topic for free.
Simon and I have had minor fallings out in the past about the architect's renders. Was it a specific tool or just someone using a generic AI where it changes the architect's render from, sunny, lovely day to a horrible rainy day? And
I was actually about to bring that up.
yeah, I knew you were. Yeah.
The problem with them is that, they are designed to sell the idea.
Of course.
To you. Fundamentally, they're doing a sales job.
Yeah.
So, of course, they're going to present it. And it's a beautiful sunny day. Everybody's looking happy. Everything is relaxed. It's this sort of wonderful utopian idea of a kind of built environment wonderland. And the reality is things don't look like that when you see them in the flesh. Or they might look like it on a particularly good day once or twice a year.
There's an architect in Manchester, I think he's called Tim Groom, who a lot of his renders are done in the rain, which is quite appropriate. But they still make it look amazing.
Is that where you're from?
Yes. Yeah.
Whereabouts?
Salford.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask your age, but I would imagine you were growing up around the time of that regeneration.
I'm 30, so I remember going to the Lowry when it was first built, that theatre, and there was nothing else around. So it was just this like really cool theatre, but in the middle of like 1980s Canary Wharf, if you imagine that. So just kind of like, not all of this ex-Dockland all around. Yeah, it's really weird.
I mean, did that kind of compel you to take an interest in it?
Living in Manchester and growing up there in the early noughties 100% fueled all of this interest in urban regeneration. At the time that I was really getting into this stuff, so I'm 30, so I was born in 1995, pre-financial crash Manchester was not as booming as it is like today, but it was like booming in its own kind of way. And I was seeing all of these cranes and stuff rising on the skyline and all these artist impressions of what the city will look like in 2010. Yeah, that really excited me because I was like, this is so cool. And you see the city develop around you.
Sort of divert slightly, and this might be an irrelevant point by the time the podcast comes out. But there's a really interesting point there about he's the first of the city mayors to go back into Westminster or to go into Westminster. And I've long said, and I think a lot of, it's not me, I'm not particularly original, but outside the cabinet and one or two other very senior positions within Westminster politics, the city mayors are the most powerful politicians in Britain.
Yeah.
And it's a really, really good test bed for working out how to run an administration, how to formulate policy, how to put policy into action. Yeah. And I think it gives you a degree of kind of professionalization almost, or skill or experience that you can then take into Westminster, which almost everybody else in Westminster doesn't have. It gives you a huge advantage.
Very true.
And I think this could actually, in the long term, apart from being almost a finishing school for politicians before going on to national or central government, it could greatly improve the quality of our politics. Because you've got people going in who know what they're doing.
Yeah, completely agree. It is being used as a stepping stone. You have Boris Johnson.
He's a kind of left Westminster to go into this other role and coming back as these sort of garlanded heroes.
We've only had London mayor for, 20 years? We've only had, maybe longer, but we've only had the city mayors for 10 years. Yeah. And in that time, they've produced definitely one prime minister, potentially two.
It's certainly brave. It'd be very easy to kind of stay as, essentially sort of lord of your own little sort of fiefdom. It's very easy to criticise, I think, or to look good when you're on the sidelines.
It is, but they do have a very difficult
job. Yeah, of course.
These are the powerhouses of the economy.
Yeah.
Narrative of Manchester is phenomenal. Because you have to go back to the Arndale Centre bombing in 1996.
Even further back, a lot of people would argue it started in kind of the 80s, but I think that bomb was obviously they had to rebuild. It was like, why not rebuild big,
But then the other really big thing was the Olympic bid.
Yes.
for 2000,
Mhm.
which they didn't get,
Mhm.
but the skills and the information, the evidence they gathered and the sort of plan they put together
Mhm.
then got them the 2002 Commonwealth
And the
Games.
confidence that I think it gave the city as well. It was like, oh, we can actually do this. Seeing that name up alongside like Sydney, and I don't remember where else bid that year, but seeing the Manchester name, up there, I think that gave the city a lot of confidence.
I mean, do you think Andy Burnham? I suppose I'm asking you both here. Is what he's done in Manchester, is that a sort of blueprint for the new sort of batch of mayors, the latest batch? Will it work in other places?
I think every place is going to be different. I think it could well be a blueprint for those very sort of urban metropolitan centres. But some of the mayors are in more sort of rural or shires type areas where it's going to be a very, very different set of requirements and a very different demographic that you're dealing with, and a different set of expectations and different set of attitudes towards development and house building in particular.
Agree. Yeah, no, I think so too. I think Greater Manchester is quite a microcosm of the wider country. You've got kind of in the centre is sort of more, I would say, like left leaning. Around the outskirts, more sort of socially conservative. So it's probably quite a good microcosm. A bit like London, though. I suppose London is kind of the same with that. So yeah, maybe a mayor of somewhere that was more politically monocultural maybe wouldn't do as well in the national setting, because they'd have to appeal to more people. But if you're from a setting where you are governing over people with lots of different interests, it probably is a very good stepping stone of experience into going into the national picture. Yeah, for sure.
But what I would say, I mean, London and Manchester aren't typical.
No.
Even the British cities. I mean, even though you may have a sort of broad spectrum of political opinion,
True.
it tends to be anchored in a kind of social liberalism,
True.
which you're not necessarily going to get in some parts of the country.
A kind of term that keeps cropping up time and time again in your videos is placemaking.
Yes. It sounds kind of basic, but it is the art of making a place. It's the art of making somewhere that people actually want to go to and want to stay in. And, well, for me, I think it's, when you go to like a European city or like any other type of walkable city when you're on holiday, and immediately you come off the plane and you're exploring the city for the first time, you're like, okay, I could live here. I love this place. This is awesome. That is that feeling. It's that feeling of like, I could live here. I think that's
livable.
Yeah, that's what placemaking is to me. Yeah.
It's almost become a bit of a meme on places like Twitter. What is it? Kind of walkable urban places.
But that's kind of the language of modern urbanism. I mean, it's a lingo in its own right.
Yeah.
But I think it's a lingo that at this point hasn't become exhausted. It still sort of it's still rooted in a kind of a meaning that is everyday at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how long that will last.
True, yeah.
But that is the kind of language that modern planners and planning and modern urbanists, to coin the term, are using these days.
I think it's a term that people can identify with as well. It's not a jargon term. Like you can just you can hear human scale not work in the industry or know anything about planning and immediately understand what that means, I think.
Yeah. It's straight away. I mean, it's almost like a literary term.
Yeah.
It's very visual.
Yeah,
I mean, we were walking around Bradford, and I think was it an original definition of human scale? That if you look up at the top floor of a building, sorry, I'll let you.
So this is Jan Gehl. So Jan Gehl is the great sort of Danish
yes.
architect planner who we interviewed some years ago, by
really?
the way, because we only get the best people in planning, and who said memorably, Edinburgh could be the most beautiful city in the world, but it's been ruined by traffic engineers. I didn't say that. His big concept was no building should be so tall that if you're standing on the street and you look up at somebody leaning out of the top floor window, you can't see the expression on their face.
Interesting.
So
like that.
the whole point was buildings everywhere within a city or within an urban environment should enhance or reinforce or at least contain this basic human connection.
Yeah. And have that, being able to see people's facial expressions. And
Yeah.
I guess that would create more of a community. Again, you get that in like European cities, don't you, where you sort of look up and see people reading in their window and things like that. It's quite nice feeling.
You get it in. I think Scotland's very good at it as well, with the kind of the tenement style building, which isn't something we really have in England.
No, they have a different leasehold system, which essentially facilitates it. I don't know too much about the ins and outs of that, but apparently, you can have a freehold flat in Scotland, whereas it's impossible in England because you can't own the land that it sits on.
Right.
In Scotland, they've had a work around that for hundreds of years, which means that they can build these tenements.
So one thing Simon picked out from your videos was your penchant for sort of slightly zany jumpers. Can you tell us about that? Is there a story behind it, or literally just like the jumpers?
So my wife is a costume designer.
Really?
So
wow.
she can knit, she can sew, she can make anything she puts her mind to. So a lot of those jumpers are from shops. Like she
Yeah.
hasn't made them. There is one jumper that I wore in my Newcastle video. It's the one with the blue fish
Yeah.
on it. She made that, and it is the best thing that I've ever owned. I love it. And I got
Yeah.
so many comments saying, I love the jumper, where's it from? And I had to reply to every single one being like, can't get it in a
One
shop.
of a kind. Yeah.
You've got a thing going on here because you're wearing a very sort of Cuban style shirt. I'm wearing a Cuban style shirt, but so but yours has remarkable patterns.
I love
all over
it.
So we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but I think planning has quite a well documented issue with communication and with the public perception of planning. Is that something that you think about when you're making your videos?
Yeah, you're right. Planning doesn't make itself sexy, but I think it can be if you think about what you can do with it. Because again, I think you speak to anyone and they will say, oh, I don't like this about my area. I want to change this, or this could be better. Everybody has ideas about how to improve their local area. So in theory, everyone should be interested in planning and urbanism and things like that. I think the reason they're not is because it is probably this enormous wall of like, oh my God, there's so much policy and so many documents to read and so much of this. And even just searching for something on the planning portal. So I have a planning degree and even I struggle to find things on a planning portal. I use planning portals every day with my job, and even I struggle with some councils' planning portals. And I'm thinking, this is like a democratic thing which should be so easy for people to use. We should have a national planning portal, I think, personally, so that people can go and see the changes in their local area. But yeah, it just feels like a barrier for people. I think that's what it is. Yeah.
There's a big issue, I think, and this is something that Simon Creer, the Director of Communications at the RTPI, likes to talk about. And that's to do with the way that councils present their local plans on their websites. I mean, it's completely impenetrable for the most part. I mean, some are doing a better job than others, obviously. I do know that MHCLG is encouraging, it's part of their sort of digital planning transformation, is encouraging people or councils to create digital local plans, which are map-based, which therefore sort of opens the way for them to them becoming more searchable, more attractive, more easy to navigate and understand. But my feeling generally is a local plan should tell a story.
Yeah.
And they don't.
No. Agreed. It's very policies and very impenetrable. That was a good word that Simon used. Yeah, that's how I feel about it as well. Even as someone who's studied planning at uni and knows, a little bit about it, it still feels very impenetrable. And I can imagine that if you were a person that didn't have a planning degree, didn't have a job in property or anything like that, and you were thinking, oh, I want to improve this thing about my local area, you might start and then realize that it's this enormous hill to climb.
It's really intimidating.
Yeah, really intimidating.
I mean, and that's before you start thinking about writing an objection. And, I know there's these AI tools now. I think we won't get onto those just yet. But, the thought of just being a normal person trying to engage in planning, acting as like a Rule 6 party or something, I think that must be so intimidating and also really expensive.
Yeah.
And yet, interestingly, there are people who, perhaps without realizing it, do sort of operate around the fringes of planning, that sort of hinterland where planning meets the rest of the world, who are really engaged in activities around place and some form of informal placemaking. Everybody who joins a civic society, if you are on the Friends Committee of your local park, for instance, or green space, you are in some way, you're interacting with the planning system. The system, I think, has a responsibility to make life much easier for those people, to make it much more accessible, much more open. And again, I suspect it's extremely variable. It depends a lot on individual officers, the individual ethos of different places, particular policies that might be in place in one borough but not in another. It's all a bit too patchwork and random.
Does seem to be, yeah. More community garden projects as well. There's a really nice one around where we live.
Really?
And they plant just in little grass verges and things like that. They'll just plant trees and bushes and things. And I thought, when I don't have a full-time job and a part-time job with YouTube, I'd love to sort of join in with that kind of stuff, because that just seems perfect.
Yeah.
That's exactly how I'd like to spend my retirement, I think.
Well, we see lots around our way, and I'm sure I've seen this elsewhere as well. Have you seen the sort of knitted covers for postboxes?
Oh, yeah, I have.
Now, I think somebody must be making them and selling them. There's going to be somebody, maybe it's your wife,
Maybe she goes out at
She
night.
does it secretly, yeah.
Stealth letterbox coverer.
Putting the jumpers in.
Is it a knitting circles? Are they still?
Knitting I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm not really familiar
don't
with
know.
knitting circles. It's not my thing.
So I was scrolling LinkedIn this morning, as is my wont, and someone was talking about a piece of coverage of the Dartmoor ponies
Oh yeah.
cull, which I'm not going to ask you for an opinion on. Have you seen this?
I haven't actually. I said, oh yeah, as
Oh,
if I
so
knew what
it's essentially it's become this huge thing. Some people are claiming that Natural England have demanded a cull of 90% of the Dartmoor ponies to stop overgrazing, and then Natural England have fired back and said that's absolutely not what we said. Anyway, the reason it kind of jumped out at me because someone described some coverage of this issue as being simultaneously niche and zeitgeisty at the same time. And I thought that was a really nice way of describing your channel, but also I guess, planning as a concept in general, like we've been saying all day, people are really interested in this stuff.
Yeah.
It's niche, but everyone has some kind of stake in it.
Yeah, everyone can identify it. I always think that like architecture is like art that you're forced to engage with. If you don't like a painting, you just don't look at it. But if you don't like a sculpture or a statue, you just don't go look at it. But if a building gets built in your neighborhood that you don't like, you don't have a choice but to look at it.
Well, you quite like the sort of new London vernacular buildings, don't you? Yeah, you've done a video on those. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just so I get that it's very, very basic and like that just looks like an apartment building, but I almost see it in the whole story of London. So I kind of imagine that they would have felt the same way about those like Georgian terraces back in the day, where it's like, oh, not another bloody Georgian terrace. They've built loads of these all over. London's going to all look the same one day. But of course, that just added to the patchwork as well. So I think in 200 years, I wonder if it'll be like, oh, wow, look, 21st century architecture.
I'm kind of inclined to agree with you there. We don't have a lot of ornamentation.
Mm-mm.
But in some ways that helps because it acts as a kind of backdrop for buildings that do.
Yeah. If you go to any of those like mainland European cities, Barcelona, Rome, whatever, and you really look at it, 90% of the buildings are not necessarily special. They're just sort of 6-story apartment buildings. If you had a whole street with loads of different architectural styles, it would just look messy and incoherent. So I think they add a bit of visual order to the streets.
I take your point. I mean, I do quite like messy and incoherent, but it's to his own, and everything is constructed.
Exactly. It's the subtle details. So if you look at a lot of the brickwork in these buildings and the tile work, that's where these buildings really pop.
Yes.
And I think that for me is a lot better than just having like random bits stuck onto it and things like that.
I completely agree with that. I don't think we do enough decorative brickwork
Agreed,
at all. And tiles are fabulous. I mean, one of my favourite buildings in London, I live down in southwest London, is the Tolworth Tower.
Okay.
Which was designed by the same guy who designed Centre Point, big sort of landmark building alongside the A3. A lot of people think it's extremely ugly because it's got that sort of very 60s tower block look. But when you go up close, the detail and the quality of the tiling on it is really exceptional.
Yeah, perfect.
And until you actually go and stand right underneath it, you don't appreciate it.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess also this is a kind of skills issue. We hear a lot about, one of the big barriers to delivering development is that we simply don't have enough people to build or build at the requisite quality.
Well, there was that really sort of interesting report from the House Builders Federation recently about viability, in which they said, the two big viability barriers, without taking into account the cost of land, which is another discussion entirely, are, on the one hand, the cost of regulation, which has gone up because there is more that builders are expected to meet more and more different sets of rules. That has to be paid for. The planning system, a lot of this is dumped on the planning system as well. So fire safety regulation, BNG, all of this sort of thing. And the other one was the sort of expanding cost of construction materials and labour. You can't ignore this.
No, exactly.
And this is going to have an enormous impact to the point where an enormous number of schemes across the UK now are basically just unviable.
Yeah, construction slowdown in London is happening. I think we built 5,000 homes in London last year against a target of 88,000. I think it's been the case for a long time that to build anything in London you do have to hit a higher standards. I think I'm right in saying that all apartment buildings in London have to have balconies. So every single flat in London that you build has to have a balcony, and most of them have to be like dual aspect, all that sort of stuff. And it used to be that London prices could kind of justify that. But I think it's been tipped a bit lately. So it's now just the case that a lot of these schemes are just unviable. And we are going to see a massive slowdown in the number of homes being delivered in London, right at the time when we really need that to be going in the opposite direction.
Well, yes, yeah. I mean, the thing is that the solutions to this are very long term. They're not something that can be who can be dealt with within a single parliamentary cycle. You're looking at generations change
Exactly.
of the kind that we were talking about in terms of Manchester, for example, and to a lesser extent Liverpool, but Manchester is a real success story here. It takes 30 to 40 years to turn the city around.
Very true. Yeah, very true.
On a slightly more positive note, I was watching a very good video this morning about a young lad from Shropshire, I think, who's going to represent the UK, possibly just England, at the bricklaying championships in China. Shrewsbury College apprentice has been selected to take part in the Bricky Olympics.
Wow.
Yeah, we wish him well.
Olympics.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that how fast you can build a sort of a brick wall?
I think I've seen something along these lines, and bricklaying can be actually quite a complex task. You get into this more sort of decorative type bricklaying as well, so you have to be able to do that again efficiently, at speed, and with minimal mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So participants have a time limit of 22 hours over 3 days, with an audience of
2 hours.
250,000 people in the crowd.
Wow.
I'm sorry, Simon's never going to let me host one of these.
I reckon someone. So how long? 22 hours.
22 hours over 3 days. They find out what they are required to build on the day of competition.
Seeing as we're on the topic of the Olympics, you guys will know this. I don't think this came from a fever dream. Is it true that planning used to be an Olympic?
Yes.
Yeah.
In the very early days of the Olympics, when they hadn't quite worked out it should merely be, it should be purely sporting events, you had a lot of sort of decorative and lots of sort of artisanal skills as well, I think.
Yeah. Oh.
And planning was among them.
Wow.
Apparently. And I don't quite know how.
Yeah, I think maybe we'll leave that one there.
We won't revisit that.
You have the father of town planning, who was an ancient Greek, wasn't he?
Very true.
Hippodamus.
Yes.
Hippodamus.
Yeah, friend of the planner, regular columnist, Hippodamus. Yeah. Have you ever considered sort of branching out from the urban and kind of, making a video on sort of ecology or?
That's a really good question. I'd have to learn more about it. I think I did do a video about the new boardwalk at Canada Water. They've kind of taken an old industrial dock and built a lot of habitat by the side of it, and so now there's loads of wildlife that live there, and they've built this incredible boardwalk going across the whole thing that you can go and see all of these little nests and stuff like that. And I think I talked in that a little bit about all of the different type of birds, and I did the same for the Canary Wharf video as well, because I've done something similar there. I don't think I have the expertise to be talking about plants and animals yet, but definitely it's something I'd like to learn for sure. Yeah.
Do you have any sort of contact or connection with other YouTubers, other people who are producing similar kinds of content?
So me and a guy called Chris Spargo have become quite close recently, as well as another guy called Luke O'Sullivan. And I've met a few of the other sort of London-based YouTubers as well. Those are the two that I have most contact with. They dabble into urbanism a bit as well, and they're much bigger than me, but their videos focus on a much broader range of topics.
Yeah, didn't you do a walk through Milton Keynes?
Walk through Milton Keynes with Chris, and a walk through Poundbury with Luke O'Sullivan.
I mean, because one thing I found, we have an Instagram channel, which unfortunately we neglect, and I should revive it. One thing that disappointed me, actually, was there's very little UK-based urbanism content on Instagram. There's loads from the USA. I think TikTok has a bit more.
Yeah.
And obviously there's stuff on YouTube, which I think is maybe a growing thing. I mean, clearly there seems to be a market for this, a space for this.
Yeah. I watched a lot of those US-based ones. I know that not just Bikes is in Canada, but City Nerd and things like that that are based in the US. I suppose it's funny, I didn't realise that there was such a gap in the market for UK-based stuff before I set up my channel and got loads of comments saying, oh, we've been waiting for something like this for a long time. So
there's a real, I think, community of kind of planning adjacent YouTubers. So Jago Hazard and Jeff Marshall do kind of transport, and then there's Tweedy. Do you know Tweedy? He does sort of pubs and history walks around London.
I've probably seen the videos. The name doesn't ring a bell, but yeah.
And I do want to ask a couple more questions actually before we go. One is technical. What sort of software, what sort of platforms are you using, and how easy or difficult was it to learn how to do that?
For my editing, I use a tool called DaVinci. And that was another barrier actually, because I always thought I'd have to download, what's the Adobe one? Premiere Pro, I'm going to have to have a monthly subscription, and so that was always a kind of barrier. And then I learned that DaVinci is just as good, if not better, and free. They do have a paid version, but it's a one-off cost as well.
Right.
So, which is fantastic. It's a real sort of reaction against that whole subscription model, which I really enjoy. DaVinci has been fantastic, and I really do everything in DaVinci. I mean, I use PowerPoint for my thumbnails. But that's about it. Do I use any other software? Yeah, not really. Yeah, just
Uh,
that.
Where are you getting your music from?
Oh, that's right. I used to use what's it called, Soundstripe. I use Motion Array now because Motion Array you can get a lot of little graphics and sound effects and background music as well as sort of footage. So a lot of the footage of like cities that I've been using in my videos since January have been from Motion Array. Yeah, I was sort of thinking, oh, should I get a drone? And then I was like, no, because I'll crash it into a pylon. I'll just pay £300 a year to Motion Array and just use their much better footage.
Have you dipped your toe in AI
Oh no! So you mean for the generative?
for your for your
stuff?
videos? Yeah.
So there's an idea that I have, and it seems to have been well received when I suggested it on my channel to do sort of like videos about, oh, here's how I would pedestrianise Oxford Street. Here's what I would do with it, or here's how I would change this little bit of London. But I don't know. I didn't feel comfortable using AI for that because there seems to have been this enormous reaction against generative AI. And I'm quite creative, and I have a lot of friends who are artists and create music, and obviously my wife is in costume. So there's been this sort of like about generative AI. I'm not sure where I am with it, but luckily my wife is also a really good illustrator, so she said, oh, I'll do it. I'll do these little images for you and stuff. So, and I think when we do that, because everybody will assume this is AI, I'm going to put a little thing in the bottom corner saying human made, not AI, because I think you have to do that nowadays, which is kind of sad, but
Yeah, very very much so. And I think as producers of a magazine, I think we believe that people value the kind of human touch.
I have a big thing about handmade things.
Yeah, me too.
And
me
DIY
too.
things.
Having said that, I'm not totally against AI. I do use it a lot to sort of. It's just useful for those kind of more admin-y tasks. Isn't it?
And I think,
It is.
it's
So
a sort of-
I did a video about a bar chart race, which I'm so surprised it did as well as it did because it's just a bar chart race
about
of
the
the
rate
UK
of
cities.
how quickly
And
they're growing.
I got all of the data from the ONS and I put it all together in this massive spreadsheet and had all these different local authorities that were all jumbled up. So I think I just put that into ChatGPT and said, can you reorder these? And that did it.
Yeah.
That did a very good job.
That's doing an admin.
Yeah, that's the admin stuff. So I think it really is great for that. But generative AI, I don't think I'll be using that on my channel anytime soon.
Another thing I wanted to ask, when we arrived today, we were having a conversation with our podcast engineer about microphones.
Yes.
So there's the gear you're using.
Mhm.
Do you shoot this on your phone?
I used to until very recently. I got a DJI little camera, one of those cameras. All the YouTubers have them, and that came with a microphone as well. And then before that, I was using my phone. Yeah.
And in terms of the mic,
Uh-huh.
one of the comments you were making was you previously used a small lapel type mic.
Yeah, so before I got that mic, and I still have, it's a little Rode, so it's about that big kind of little box, but it comes with a lapel mic, so I clipped that onto there, and that's been really good to me as well. That was the first upgrade in my sound quality. That happened about last year. Before that, I was all over the place. If you watch my earlier videos, oh my goodness. I like the idea of someone watching my videos and seeing the process of me learning how to make videos. Yeah.
And would you advise or recommend or encourage other people working within planning or within urbanism
Yeah.
to do something similar?
100%. We need to make it more of a thing. I mean, everybody is interested in their local area and everyone has ideas on how to improve it. But if we make more videos like this, which kind of tell people, by the way, you can, like, this is how we get involved, and there's a whole community of people that do this kind of stuff, I think that can 100% encourage more people to do it.
I know you keep it distinct from your day job, if you like, but has the planning sector sort of engaged really with you at all as a YouTuber?
Yeah, so I've had emails from councils and not necessarily developers. It has mostly been councils saying, oh, we have this new development project, we'd like you to come up and do a video about it. It's just a time thing. So Stockport have been really interested, and it's funny because I was going to do a video about Stockport anyway, and then they were like, oh, we'd love to have you up and talk about the regeneration and all that sort of stuff. So that's almost certainly going to happen soon, and I'm really excited about that because I was going to talk about Stockport anyway.
Well, yeah, I mean, we did an article on the transport interchange.
Yes.
It's really cool.
Yeah, and the pedestrianisation. I mean, I've not been to Stockport for about 10 years. And it wasn't that kind of place 10 years ago. And now it seems to be.
I mean, one of the dangers with that, though, when you're doing things as somebody's guest and they're laying it all on for you, is that there's a risk of losing your independence.
Definitely. And I'm not, I'm a bit of a conflict avoider everywhere else in my life, but I found that that I have been able to be like, I'm not going to say that. There was I won't say what video it was, but there was a video I was working on recently, and they sort of said, oh, can you not mention the pandemic? And I was like, oh, I'm not going to not mention like that's really important to this particular story. So I said, okay, well, I'll not make it a massive feature, but I'll still have to mention it, because otherwise there was this whole thing in the story that was just. So yeah, I definitely.
Because I like the fact there are people like you roving around, talking about planning, talking about urbanism and urban centres and placemaking and the places we live in the built environment. And you're not tied to anybody. You've got no agendas.
Yeah, that's it, and that's how I'd like it to stay. Which is what, I mean, as I said, the people I work with have been super supportive of it. But I do like to keep those two separate, because otherwise, something that I say in my YouTube videos could reflect.
Absolutely.
I think as an industry, planning is not publicity averse, but I think it gets very anxious when it can't control the narrative quite strictly.
It's very hard, though, because people have extremely strong feelings and people are intimidated by change.
Yes.
Especially if that change comes in the form of a very bureaucratic, technocratic process, which isn't clarifying what actually is going to happen and what does it feel like and what it's going to mean for you at a street level in your life tomorrow, next year, in 5 years' time.
Agreed.
And also a process which maybe hasn't asked you what you think.
Yes. And even if it has, it's difficult to engage.
Well, City Ed, thank you very much for coming on. It's been an absolute joy to have you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Simon, thank you very much.
You're more than welcome, Ben. Thank you for hosting in such
Well, I've had a great time.
fine fashion.
Yeah. And a goodbye from us.